He kōna ipurangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
This podcast includes discussion of self-harm, suicide and sexual assault. Please listen with care. If you or someone you know needs support, you can contact the Need to Talk helpline anytime, day or night, by texting or calling 1737. A wider list of mental health support services can be found on our show page, www.rnz.co.nz/Nellie's Baby.
Last time on Nellie's Baby.
I spent all afternoon yesterday looking at the DNA.
Got some really nice close matches actually. The interesting one is Sharon.
She sent back, "Hi, wow, this is interesting. Sounds like I might be your auntie." To sort of know that I have two people who probably did really want me. You know, if he's mentally obviously disabled and she obviously was, they probably wanted me, but you know, of course they couldn't have me.
I'm in the car on the way to Porirua. After months of calling and messaging with Sarah while researching her birth mother Nellie, we are finally about to meet in person. I'm excited, but feeling kind of apprehensive because together we're also going to meet Sarah's aunt Sharon. She's flown over from Australia and it'll be the first time they're meeting too. And it's not them. I actually think Sarah and Sharon will be fine. They've been messaging back and forth a little bit and they seem to be getting along. I noticed when Sarah sent me Sharon's phone number, she's already listed Sharon in her contacts as Auntie Shazza. What's got me on edge is where we're doing this first meeting somehow, and I don't know how it's ended up this way, but we've decided to meet at the site of the Porirua Psychiatric Hospital, which is where Nellie lived and where Gordon, Sharon's brother and Sarah's father, also lived. A museum was opened on the site in the 1980s. So, literally, these two family members are going to meet for the first time on a tour of a former lunatic asylum. No one else seems to think this is weird, but the thing is, I've been to that museum before, and it's a really eerie place. Not the place I'd pick for a meeting between a long-lost aunt and niece. But I guess this isn't your typical family reunion. I'm Kirsty Johnston, and this is Nellie's Baby, Episode 4, A Trip to the Asylum. When I arrive at Porirua Hospital Museum, it looks exactly how I remember. It's a long brown wooden building with a red roof and an L-shaped wing at one end. If you didn't know the history of this place, the whole setup would seem kind of lovely. It's surrounded by grass and trees, and the museum's set quite far inside the sprawling hospital grounds, so by the time you get here, you kind of feel like you're in some kind of park. There's even a chapel next door and this lovely view over some fields and hills. The museum is housed in the last remaining part of the old asylum. This was F ward, F for forensic, where the, quote, most disturbed female patients were locked up. F ward is where Beverly Wardle Jackson, the former Porirua patient who was at the hospital at the same time as Nellie, said she was sent after she tried to escape.
Yeah, and was locked in there, and that was one of the worst punishments that you could get. It was just so scary and, so frightening.
From the scant information we've managed to find, we think Nellie almost certainly spent time in F ward. I'm hoping that fact won't be too overwhelming for Sarah when she arrives. Hiya.
I bought you some flowers. Here you go.
Bless you.
They're only little.
Sarah is wearing a floral jumpsuit and pink socks with red chucks. Her blonde hair is down to her waist. She reminds me of the TV character Rainbow Bright. After a bit of chatting, I suggest we jump in the car so we can talk without the cicadas. I really want to know how Sarah's feeling ahead of meeting Sharon.
I don't know, what if they don't like me? What if I'm not what they expect? What if I'm too bouncy? If I'm too loud? And then I think she's bringing, like, maybe her grandchildren. So I know the kids all like me, though, but it's like, oh, it's so overwhelming meeting all these family members.
Have you talked to her on the phone yet? Like, what does she seem like?
No, she left a voice message. I left a few voice messages. Voice messages are good because there's no, like, pressure. It's quite easy to just send a little voice message being like, oh, you know. And then she sent back these huge, long, completely overwhelming voice messages that went into all the history of his family, my dad's family, and all their side of it, and mental illness, and how he ended up to be in Peru, which is where he met my mother. And it was really overwhelming just to get all this information at once, because I think in a normal family, if you grow up, if there are any sort of family secrets or history of mental illness or stigma, you just learn them in drips and drabs. And then to have all this information at once was really scary. So I just kind of like then didn't talk to her for 3 days. And she probably thought I was really rude, especially because she'd said, oh, I'm going to fly over from Australia and I'm going to come and see you and I'm going to meet you. And I don't know. Then that was overwhelming because it was like, wow, I can't believe she's going to do that. Just for me, yeah, it's really amazing that she's done that. But wouldn't you, if you all of a sudden had a niece? If you just found out you had a niece, wouldn't you fly? I would, I suppose.
I think I would. What do you?
It's hard to know.
What expectations do you have? Like, what are you hoping for?
I think I'm hoping they'll like me, but I think they will, because I think they seem very colourful and cheerful, and I'm also scared because all of a sudden it feels like I have, because of course I have my adopted parents who are my parents and, you know, I love them, but I sort of feel I have a whole nother parent that I have to think about. And as they get older, now I feel like I have sort of 3 lots of parents, three different parents or parental figures that I have to think about. And I feel guilty because I hope that Gordon will be able to understand that I live in the UK and that I can't come and see him all the time. And that's really hard. I sort of feel like, oh gosh, I'm just going to turn up, say hi, and then just bugger off back to the UK. Oh.
Sweet, should we get out of this hot car?
You must be melting because you got a cardigan on.
Fine. I should take it off. We get out of the car and sit on the grass in the breeze. After a few minutes, Sharon arrives. She's got short grey hair and tattoos on her arms and her legs and a bone carving around her neck. I get a good vibe from Sharon straight away. Later she tells me she used to own a bar, and I can immediately envisage her dealing with drunks in like a very calm, no-nonsense manner. In a word, Sharon's cool. As we walk over to say hi, Sharon helps 2 children, a boy and a girl, get out of her car.
Hello everybody, hello. Hi. Hello. Hello. Hi, I'm Sarah.
So good to meet you.
Skippy. I bought you a present.
Oh, thank you.
And a cat.
Oh, thanks.
All my
You
lesbian
didn't have
friends
to
got
do
cats,
that.
right?
Yes. Yes. They definitely.
So this is Tom.
Tom?
Yeah.
Nice
Hey,
to meet
Tom.
you.
Nice to meet you too.
Hello, what's your name?
Edith.
Edith. Hi, nice to meet you.
This is your cousin.
I know, crazy, huh?
It's your cousin. And this
Sort
is
of cousin. I know. What am I?
Ezra. He's a little bit shy.
Hello.
Can you say hello to your cousin.
Hello. Shake my hand. There you go.
This is Gordon's daughter.
I don't know. Do I look like him? No. No?
No. He's hairy.
Yeah,
If you
true.
had a beard and moustache.
Yeah,
She
I
might.
could grow a beard. Maybe not.
Everyone chats for a while, and as I thought, it's fun and natural and everyone gets along. Do you want to have a look or should we have a sit down first?
Oh, whatever blows your hair back. Unless,
We are in Wellington.
That's a good expression. I might have to use that.
yeah.
Well, we should go now because we've only got an hour in there. Because I shut at 4. Is that right?
Yeah.
So
Should we have a quick look?
We'll have a quick look around.
Yeah, and then we can have a
I
talk
don't know how
after.
interesting these two are.
We start to head towards the museum.
That'll be okay.
As we get closer, Sharon says it's feeling familiar. She used to visit Gordon when he was at the hospital with her mum.
I remember visiting Gordon in buildings like this, but I don't know which one it was.
Yeah.
Mum's gone now. She would have remembered it all, but yeah.
It's quite big, isn't it?
Yeah. Gordon was in a room like that, down that end, and we'd come through the door and walk right to the end.
Yeah.
So I'm
and
not
this
sure.
a bit of different ward, eh?
It might have been a different wall, because this one's a woman's.
Yeah. We go into the museum.
It's all handwritten.
It's a long wooden room filled with medical equipment and glass cases that hold old jars of medicines and typewriters and strange-looking implements. On the wall, there's a huge picture of the original asylum building in all its Gothic horror. Most of it was pulled down following an earthquake in the 1940s. In the picture, you can just see F Ward in the foreground. As we're looking at this, the museum's curator, Bruce Shepherd, walks over. He's a dapper man, he's quite elderly, and he's really helpful.
We'll start over this corner.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kirsty. I rang yesterday about us visiting. Do you remember?
Yeah. Because my mother was in the hospital, and so was my father. So I was actually I was conceived here in the hospital.
Oh,
Yeah.
haven't struck that one.
So so we're busy finding out lots of information about this. It would have been in the 70s, sort of 70s and 80s.
70s,
So.
80s. The building you're in is the main dormitory of F Ward.
Yeah.
That was opened in 1910.
Wow.
I'll just blow my nose. I've got hay fever.
Oh yeah. So is my partner at the moment.
Do you want the full tour, Sarah? You want a full tour?
Yeah, please, might as well.
Just the word lunatic asylum. Just awful.
No, it's not. Just like.
Yes.
If you didn't catch that, Sharon said even the word lunatic asylum is just awful. She's read the sign hanging on the photo. The curator hears this and explains to her that it's a hangover from the belief that the changes of the moon caused insanity.
It's Latin. And
Print it out.
Luna means the moon.
The moon. Oh yeah, Luna. Moon.
Yeah.
Of course.
And tit means they had a twitch or a shake. That's all it meant.
Oh,
So that's what lunatic meant.
yeah.
I don't think this explanation makes Sharon or Sarah feel any better.
Wards here. M8 was up here.
The curator, Bruce, explains how the asylum was built in the late 1800s to house patients deemed incurable on a farm site.
Somehow,
The idea was that the patients would provide labour for the farm and get the benefit of fresh air and exercise. Patients would also help in the kitchen and the laundry.
this is the tea urn for the farm hands that were patients. Give the cigarette to the...
As I'm listening, I can't help thinking about what Beverly told me about when she visited the museum and took the same tour.
I went there probably about 10 years ago just to have a look, and they have a curator on a Tuesday that goes around talking about equipment and things, and I just felt like standing there and saying to him, you're just telling lies, you're not telling the truth as to what went on in this ward, you know.
Beverly says the museum is based largely on the recollections of former staff and formal records and documents about the hospital. The story it told didn't resonate with her at all.
I'll be quite honest with you, Kirsty. You know, even in my adult years, I felt like going out and burning it down. It left such a terrible, scar on my mind. It was an evil, evil place.
I've been thinking a lot about the stories from the former staff members. What was it like for them to work at a place that Beverly describes as evil?
All of this was all closed with a high fence. None of this was out in the open like that. These would be the posts.
This is an old documentary made for Radio New Zealand. It's called The Porirua Ladies. It's based on the memories of Naidea and Rita. They were two former psychiatric nurses at Porirua. They began nursing in the 1930s, and they were in their 80s when this was recorded in the early 2000s.
This here is the courtyard of F Ward and surrounded by over 6 foot.
The documentary is them doing the tour we're now doing with a younger version of Bruce Shepherd.
Formaldehyde was used as a sedative, wasn't it, no?
Yes. Almost instantaneous. It was about the only thing we had was formaldehyde as a sedative. You could smell it all over the hospital. Gasp. Even the smell put you into sleep. At this end, there were people there that were workers. They used to help. They got paid a little bit of money by the government a week, which bought their cigarettes. And they were a bit independent, but they would help in the ward. They would put the laundry out and polish the floors and do odd jobs that they were capable of doing.
Kitchen, they had a kitchen?
No, they didn't have a kitchen here. They had their own rooms, and they helped in the ward because there were only 5 staff with 130 odd people. We could never have managed without their help as far as domestic work was concerned. The cigarettes never lasted very long, and everyone would dish out smokes to them. You could get a lot of things done. They helped tremendously. If you took your packet of cigarettes out and took one out, would you like to go and do so and so? You can have it. Yeah.
It was done.
It was barter. Because that was all unofficial.
Smoking was one of Beverly Wardle-Jackson's strongest memories of Porirua. It featured in the testimony her lawyer, Sonia Cooper, read out on her behalf to the Royal Commission.
I also started to smoke at Porirua Hospital as all the patients, even us teenagers, were given smokes. It was a way of keeping us calm. This was a habit I was later to strongly regret.
Beverly and the other patients whose evidence I've heard and read from the Royal Commission said their experience at Porirua was dominated by the constant threat of violence.
I was regularly attacked and punched by nursing staff. One time, when I was being dragged to seclusion by a female staff member, that staff member deliberately punched me on my body. Every day, violent incidents would occur somewhere, usually ending with the nurses assaulting patients and dragging them off to their rooms, kicking them and punching them along the way. It was all wrong, so wrong, but there was no one to tell, no one to complain to. Although some patients needed to be removed for everybody's protection, I still hated seeing the nurses pulling their hair and punching and kicking them as they lay on the ground. I remember I was on edge the whole time, wary of everyone, anxious that I might end up in the thick of it.
It's hard to square that experience with the almost fond memories of these nurses, Rita and Naidea.
You know, it was sad, but it was necessary.
But it was sad, but it had so much humanity in terms of, I don't mean it in a sort of, wonderful humanity that we spread around, but there was so much humanness in the people who we were caring for, and in the staff themselves who, had a monumental job to care for people, to be caring, but also to know when to control situations and how to control them. so that everybody didn't get upset.
They all belonged to somebody.
Yeah.
Everyone that was in here belonged to somebody, and we were looking after them for them. And a lot of us thought of it that way, you know, that they've got nobody else but us at the moment. And they could tear that up and capock in here with the shutters shut and the doors shut.
In Rita and Ngaire's retelling, even things like straitjackets and isolation rooms where patients slept on straw mattresses were for the good of the patients.
If they tore that up, tore the canvas up, and the straw was on the floor, and you'd look in and you wouldn't see a soul in here, and you'd have to come and feel all round in the straw, and they'd be as warm as toast, stark naked, because they wouldn't keep a canvas gown on. And I remember saying to somebody once, "Isn't it disgusting that these people are lying under straw?" And this bloke, it was one of the doctors, "What are you going on about?" He said, "A horse lies under straw and it's as warm as toast." And I thought, how right he is. And these people...
Rita and Ngaire point out that in their day, before the invention of modern psychiatric medicines, this was all standard practice.
It looks terrible. And you must admit, it looks terrible. But what would you have done under the same circumstances that the patient had to be safe, had to be secure, had to be warm, wouldn't keep clothes on? There was nothing else really that you could do. There were pipes up there that the heat, but sometimes the heat wasn't enough. Sometimes it was too much. You couldn't breathe. But at least they were safe. And so was everybody else.
To Ngaire and Rita, it all seemed so reasonable, so moral and defensible. But their recollection was utterly at odds with patients like Beverly.
The violence was unbearable, as was the constant noise of patients screaming and fighting among themselves and with the staff. Even though there was some new staff, most were as cold and uncaring towards the patients as those who had gone before them. Whenever staff wanted the ward cleaning done, the welfare kids were singled out, and we were bullied and shouted at like animals until the job was done. I remember complaining to the matron one day as she was passing through the corridor while I was down on my hands and knees scrubbing. She told me that I got everything I needed for nothing. She told me to stop my whinging. It was a simple choice, really. We had to do every dirty job we were given, or we would be locked up in our rooms, and we would get a hiding on our way there.
I can remember Dr. Medicott telling me that he was planning on giving treatment to people. This was down at Raiota when I was staff nurse there.
Ngaire was one of the first people in New Zealand to witness ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, firsthand. She remembered one of the doctors explaining how the procedure would be carried out.
And I thought, oh my goodness me, I think I better leave now, you know. The thought of it.
They'd attach electrodes to the heads of patients and zap them with electricity to induce a seizure. The doctor said this might cure the patients or at least alleviate their symptoms.
We both, after he'd gone, we looked at each other and said, better have a darn good sleep tonight, we mightn't sleep again. The next day when we came to work, we were all very toey because this was new altogether. And he was going to put some electrodes on, and the patient was going to go off and do a seizure, come out of it again, we hoped, you know. However, it all went well. And the patient, 2 days later, talked to us as if she'd been there all her life. Quite sensibly. She went home in a week.
That was the success of ECT.
That was the first success of ECT. Her husband was absolutely over the moon. He was happy to take her home.
ECT is still used as a psychiatric treatment. These days it's normally done under anaesthetic, and according to the American Psychiatric Association, it produces substantial improvement in about 80% of eligible patients with major depression. It can also be an effective treatment for bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and catatonia. But according to Beverly and other former patients, ECT wasn't only used to treat people at Porirua Hospital. It was used to punish them.
I also vividly remember that after one escape, I was given electric shock treatment. A few days later, I found out that my friend Wendy, who had escaped with me, had also received ECT the same day as me. It was clear that this was a punishment for trying to escape from that hideous place, although the medical reason given was that I was suffering from depression.
Another former patient, Meg Campbell, spoke in that same documentary with the former nurses, Rita and Ngaire. Meg died in 2007, but she was an award-winning poet. She was committed to Porirua Hospital in the 1960s, suffering postpartum depression and bipolar disorder. Many of her poems are about her time in Porirua, and Meg read several of them in the documentary. One of them is called Hole in the Head.
I have sung every song I know this night, my fourth in isolation. By morning I'm hoarse, and none hears me but the ladies who kick the door. You're down for treatment and serves you right, making a disturbance. But now they come, nurses who are warders, who are nurses, with hard, frightened hands. I bleed and fight and pull my clothes off in a corner. Here's the doctor, nightmare eyes bulging, master of the machine, which glides to the bed where I am held, temples barred, teeth clamped on a rubber gag. How are you, Helen? He says, just as the magistrate did. There is a smell of meths, and then no air, no time to breathe. I leave them through a hole drilled by fire in my temples, escaping the explosion that ends all worlds.
These are the fashionable clothes.
Is that a straight jacket over in the corner?
Yep, one straight jacket.
After a long hour, especially for the kids, Sarah and Sharon are nearly finished their tour. They've seen the rabbit warren of cells, and the straitjackets, and the seclusion room with the claw marks on the inside.
And basically, the straitjacket was used to stop the patient from basically a nurse up.
Yeah. I've been only half paying attention to what the curator's saying. It's been more interesting for me just watching these two new family members get to know each other, even under kind of bizarre circumstances. I've been making little notes to myself about how they're going as we walk around. I just ducked out to get some new pictures while everybody's walking around the museum. And it's so interesting, like, watching Sarah and Sharon kind of interact with each other. Like, you can tell both of them just really want to know everything immediately, and they're both a bit nervous, and Sarah's kind of jumping around. But they seem to be getting on really well. It's just really nice. And the museum's about to close, so we're getting kicked out now, but it's definitely been interesting. I rejoined the group just as they approached the last exhibit at the museum. What are we looking at here?
The early ECT machines. I mean, I find these quite upsetting because it's sort of like looking at these, you're thinking, well, this is used in 76. And I don't know when she was admitted, but could have been used on my mum or my dad, I suppose. These are the newer ones, so probably were.
What do they look like?
It says Ward 5, just like a square box with dials on, and you've got the two things. I guess they would have pushed them against the temple.
How do you feel looking at these, Sharon?
A little bit nauseous, actually. Yeah, a bit. Because what he had would not be fixed with anything like this.
It works for some people, but not everybody. Yeah. It's like medication.
Yeah.
What you can take, I can't, and vice versa.
Yeah. I just think it's a bit horrific, you know? Yeah.
We go outside, back into the sunshine. There's a plan to go for lunch. Sharon's got some family photos to show Sarah, and they're both keen to catch up more. But before they head off, Sharon tells us some news. That morning, she'd been to visit Gordon.
I asked Gordon if he remembers, and he said he does. So it's intermittent, so next time he might say, no, I don't.
Yeah.
What did you ask him, sorry?
If he remembers the hospital, and he liked it up here. He liked the hospital, but he said, I didn't like the shock therapy.
God, yeah, who would?
Yeah, he said he didn't like that. And I said, do you remember that? I said, did it hurt? And he said, I don't remember, but I know he said the name of the doctor, he liked doing it. That's what he said.
Yeah, because I used to punish them and stuff with it.
Yeah, he said.
Did you remember Nellie at all?
He said, the other day he said he didn't, but then today he said yes, and that she was an F block.
Sharon says that Gordon really wants to meet Sarah. Even though today's been a lot, everyone's on a schedule, and Sarah doesn't want to wait any longer. Next time on Nellie's Baby.
Madura.
Thanks for listening to Nellie's Baby. If you liked this program, make sure to follow or subscribe using your favourite podcast app, or listen ad-free at rnz.co.nz. While you're there, you can browse RNZ's excellent range of podcasts like Dear Wars, Conviction, and The Detail, our daily news podcast. You can also find a whole lot of Nellie's Baby's extras, including feature articles, photographs, and bonus podcasts at our show page, rnz.co.nz/Nellie's Baby, and that's Nellie spelled Nellie.
Nellie's Baby is presented by Kirsty Johnston. The executive producer is Tim Watkin and the executive editor is John Hartevelt. The producers are William Ray and Justin Gregory. The sound engineers are Phil Benge, William Saunders and Mark Chesterman. The production coordinator is Brianna Juritich. Special thanks to Dr. Hilary Stace and Dr. Olive Webb for their help in producing this podcast, and extra special thanks to Sarah.
Botox Cosmetic, out of botulinum toxin A, FDA approved for over 20 years. So, talk to your specialist to see if Botox Cosmetic is right for you.
For full prescribing information, including boxed warning, visit BotoxCosmetic.com or call 877-351-0300.
Remember to ask for Botox Cosmetic by name. To see for yourself and learn more, visit BotoxCosmetic.com. That's BotoxCosmetic.com.